Hi, everyone. Thank you. Thanks for taking your time to join me in this webinar. So over the next few minutes, we will go over a bit why we believe blockchain is important, so the essence of it. And we shall do that by highlighting the advantages of blockchain. Don't worry, we won't start over by explaining what blockchain is. But we will focus on the benefits, because then we will be able to look at the hows and the whys of this technology. So about blockchain. So this technology, as we all know, it has been around for quite a bit, and most of the hype that surrounds it is actually based on a way that you use it, as we all know. And myself personally, when I meet people and I tell them that my role is that of a blockchain consultant, those people who are not maybe that familiar with the technology often tend to say, okay, so you work with bitcoins and with cryptocurrencies. So I always have to take like that step back and say, no, there is actually more to it, and we need to explain more. So on the plus side, it's always easy to strike a conversation. No? So yeah, it's really important that emphasize that the blockchain is not just crypto, right? And we do want to start from here and to be able to talk about this technology and have a look at it at a glance. Of course, to be able to do this, it's always good to know where the technology is right now, or where it has been in these past months. And to do that, the best thing would be to look at the hype cycle that we have on this presentation right now, where we can see that it has been on the top of the peak of expectations, as it is called. But if you look closely, you can see that it has actually toppled off and it's on the way down. Now, when this happens, usually the hype around it is deflating, which is somewhat true, since cryptocurrencies don't have those overly inflated values that they used to have maybe a year or so ago. And of course, this shows us that there is also more commitment to the technology as time by. And to keep with Gartner, we can quote them directly when they say that blockchain could be a game changer for data security leaders, because it has the potential to increase resilience, reliability, transparency, and trust in centralized systems. So to go over the benefits, because that is what will lead us to the use cases and beyond, we have to keep in mind that the benefits are its immutability, the transparency that it brings with it, and of course the very simple definition that at the end of the day, we are dealing with a ledger with a sequential list of transactions, a technology that is meant to support other technologies. It is all about integration. So we have a single source of truth because of the redundancy. Hence, this gives us no central authority, no single point of failure, and we talk about fault resilience and tolerance. These advantages, of course, are achieved as we identify them through the APIs and the smart contracts. So this is the how. But before we can talk about the how, it is also a good idea to talk about what use cases are available. Because as we said, blockchain is not just about cryptocurrencies and tokens, but what is it? Now, we know that out there, there are a lot of lists of use cases available. What we have here is not an exhaustive list, but we will go through them so that we can have a look at them and break them maybe a bit down in these upcoming minutes. Now, it's also good to mention that a few of these use cases, we also have worked on them personally here at Codit, so we have actually even more experience on them. And one of them is actually the transport of containers. So as far as shipping containers are concerned, they are handled by many different actors, shall we call them, during their cycle, during their journey. and there are different authorities or companies. Now, the transportation of a container can be subject to many aspects. The release of it, the movement, checking which roles have access to it, or even integrating with other technologies, such as using IoT to determine whether a container might have been tampered with, or maybe opened in a suspicious hour, or in a location that maybe it should not have been in. So the opportunity that we see here is that the business process for a specific use case surrounding the container can be automated and shared within a consortium blockchain. And the business rules via a smart contract and the ledger itself are open to all the participants in the consortium itself. To move on, we also dealt with the case of flight delay compensation. I'm very sure that almost everyone present in this webinar or listening to this has had some sort of delayed flight. Now, the truth here is that there is legislation that protects the rights of travelers, and under certain conditions, the travelers are entitled to compensation. But the process in itself is complex, and through the adaptation of smart contracts, it is very possible to move towards instantaneous payments. We should not forget that smart contracts are simple pieces of self-executing code that respect or check if simple rules have been respected. So what is the opportunity here? We are strengthening the trust between the traveler, between the passenger, and the participating parties in your average flight journey by making instantaneous checks for the rules. Now, this concept, if you look at it from a high level, it is also similar to the music industry, for example, the payment of royalties, or that which covers intellectual property. When you are using smart contracts to validate what has been done with your intellectual property, you can have instantaneous payments and make sure that all the rules are adhered to. Another very popular one is identity management. I'm sure a lot of have seen this before. Now, the problem here is that there is a tendency to store personal information across many data silos. Now, we know that we are stating the obvious when we say that personal data is not handled properly, in spite of the fact that there is legislation and there are efforts like the recent, for example, GDPR. We should keep in mind that the intent here is not that of placing personal information on the blockchain. The idea is, the opportunity that we see here is to give back users control over their information. Now, one way to do this, because there is no clear-cut way, is to create, for example, a digital identity off-chain in a secure environment where all the interaction would be logged via the ledger. So, again, the blockchain is acting in support of other technologies. And this is a concept that is similar to insurance use cases, fraud, and even voting. And without going too far, we can also talk about land registry. Those who have maybe been involved in the process of purchasing a property know how cumbersome this process could be. When you want to purchase a piece of land, you always need to identify the ownership, and this process can be very complex, especially if the piece of land has been inherited by multiple parties. Now, if you tokenize the land itself, automating using smart contracts, the transfer of ownership can become more reliable, and of course, it is instantaneous. It is also easy to keep in mind that here, in this specific use case, we are talking about land registry, but the concept here is tokenizing your property, your valuables, and making the process of the transfer of ownership even easier. The final use case that I'm going to discuss is the track and trace of foods, and also not necessarily foods. So it is the end-to-end supply chain traceability. But in this case, we can say that the quality of goods is not always properly tracked. And usually there are certain changes in condition that cannot always be seen immediately, or in some cases, they are not even seen at all. So the opportunity that we have here in a complex supply chain where there are many parties, we can strengthen the trust between the parties and make sure that at the end, the consumer who has to benefit from these goods will get a product that has respected all regulations and make sure that the product that we deliver is genuine. So what do we do here? We can combine with IoT sensors, we pull the IoT sensors, and any information that we get from the sensors will tell us whether or not the conditions of that item have been respected. And this is something that here at Codit we have developed end-to-end, and it's fully working, as I will show you from the architecture later on in this presentation. Before we do that, however, I'm going to pass on to Venue so that we can discuss about how blockchain is seen through Microsoft.
Thanks, Edward, for this opportunity to present the Microsoft blockchain vision in this webinar. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Venuvedan. I'm a global cloud solutions architect in Microsoft, focusing on blockchain solutions and engagements on Azure. So let's get started. I would like to talk to you all about the vision that Microsoft has for blockchain services on Azure. We are a platform provider, and with Azure, we have a great cloud service with over 50 plus regions worldwide. And we just recently opened our first data centers in South Africa as well, and we are the first cloud provider to cater to the market there. And our idea is to provide our customers and partners the best-in-class cloud infrastructure that can host your blockchain workloads. It can be a public, it can be private, it can be a consortium. Having said that, we don't have a first-party ledger. We are completely agnostic of the distributed ledger technology, and we support all the ledgers that our customers want on our platform. We are also industry agnostic, and by that I mean we have our solutions, our services on Azure that can be used to build blockchain solutions for any industry. And yes, we are not into cryptocurrencies. Thanks, Edward, for that differentiation between cryptocurrencies and blockchain. So don't expect an MSFT altcoin from us. Our focus is mainly on the use cases that are relevant to the enterprises and the governments. We understand that the very nature of blockchain is that there are almost always multiple organizations involved. While we would like everyone to use our cloud services, we do realize the importance of having a hybrid cloud strategy where your network can span across, let's say, Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, and maybe your own private data center. So we don't restrict that if you use our services and products, your entire network should be on Azure. And yes, we've come a long way from saying Linux is cancer to Microsoft loves open source. And we're really proud of the fact that we are now the largest contributor to the open source community today. And we are also actively contributing to the open source ledger projects. And while some customers want to have complete control of their infrastructure, there are others who want a completely managed PaaS service, right? On Azure, you get to choose the kind of deployment model that works for you. You can sign up for our PaaS services or use our infrastructure layer to implement your complete blockchain use case. And if you have worked on any blockchain implementations in the enterprise space, you know that blockchain is just a very small aspect of the overall application architecture. You need a secure off-chain storage, for instance, to store data that you cannot store on a ledger. Think of GDPR again. And if someone comes to you tomorrow and says he wants to invoke the right to be forgotten act, right? If you have the data on the blockchain, which is by definition immutable, then you'll be in a difficult position. So you definitely need to think about what data you can store on the ledger and what data you have to store off ledgers. And so you definitely need a secure off-chain storage. And then you need a data ingestion layer as well to manage the incoming data. Let's say, for instance, you're getting a lot of data streamed from IoT devices, right? So you need some kind of a IoT hub to to get the data, manage the devices, and then pump in the data onto the ledger. And you also need some message queuing, to process the data that is incoming. You need a events processing module that you can integrate with your blockchain application. And you definitely need an identity management system, because you can't ask your enterprise users to use a private key, public key pair to log into the blockchain dApps. So they need to have some kind of a single sign-on experience using their corporate credentials to log onto the blockchain applications via single sign-on. And for that, you need a HSM module where you can safely and securely store your keys. And you may want to run some machine learning routines on the data, or you may want to provide a business reporting dashboard to the executives. So Azure actually provides all these services for you, and they all integrate seamlessly with one another and also with the ledger. So our vision is to make these enterprise integrations as seamless as possible. Finally, as I mentioned before, we are ledger and industry agnostic. Edward, can you go back to the previous slide? Yeah. So we want our partners and developers to build industry-specific solutions using our stack and go to market with us. We have a marketplace on Azure where we have both our own first-party services and also a number of partner solutions. For instance, one of our partners has a trade finance letter of credit solution based on blockchain in our marketplace. And if you have a solution in mind and you want to build it using our services, you can advertise your solution on our marketplace, and we can go to market together on that. And we depend on developers and partners like you to bring the industry flavor to our offerings. And it's not just about industry solutions. We invite our partners to extend our platform offerings as well. For instance, we have a first-party deployment template for Hyperledger Fabric on our marketplace. But if you have a better template that comes with, let's say, a governance dApp built in to handle consortiums more effectively, you can definitely go ahead and put it up on our marketplace and let customers use that. Microsoft is a platform provider. We don't want to get into the business of setting up and managing the consortiums for our customers, though we do offer services that make this process, the governance of the consortiums, seamless and easy. And we'd like our partners to come in and be the governance players. Edward, can you go to the next slide? Right. So what are the actual blockchain services that are available on Azure today? First is the ledger templates, right? To start with, we offer easy deployment templates to set up your favorite ledgers on Azure. You can go to our marketplace today. Just go to Bing or Google and then search for Azure Marketplace, and you'll get the link. So go to our marketplace today. You can choose any ledger. It can be Ethereum, Quorum, Hyperledger Fabric, Sawtooth, Coda Enterprise, Coda Open Source, Multichain. You name it, we have it. And just answer a few questions, such as, let's say, for HLF, right? What is the number of orders that you need, number of peers, etc., right? And within minutes, you have your network set up on Azure. And we have 40 such templates already available on our marketplace, and most of these templates are free to use, and you only pay for the underlying infrastructure that you consume, and probably any license fee, of course, because if, let's say, if you are using Coda Enterprise, then you need to get a license key from Coda that will cost you, right? But other than that, there is no fee. There is no charge to use the templates. And if you are familiar with Azure, the deployment templates that I'm talking about, they are all the ARM templates, the Azure Resource Manager templates. And these templates are available in all the 50 plus regions that we talked about. They're also available in the government clouds and even in our China region as well. And the second service that I want to talk about is the blockchain workbench, right? In the previous slide, we talked about how blockchain implementations require a number of other services seamlessly integrating and talking to each other. We talked about single sign-on experience, for instance, and we talked about off-chain storage. So if you're working with a customer and you want to show blockchain in action, the entirety, right, in its entirety, and you build a POC for that customer, then you can actually go ahead and build it on Azure using all our services that we talked about. But we also have a solution accelerator tool just for POCs that does the heavy lifting for you. You get the complete system. the user interfaces, the mobile apps, the off-chain storage, single sign-on experience with your corporate Active Directory. You get API endpoints so that you can connect your ML engine and reporting system all out of the box with blockchain Workbench. The service is available on our marketplace. You can connect the Workbench instance to if an existing blockchain ledger network that you already have running, or if you don't, then you can actually ask Workbench to spin up a new network right when you set it up. And within a matter of minutes, you have all these things set up and working for you. We also offer a number of demo apps that you can download from our GitHub page to get started with Workbench right away. And we've seen that the time and effort required to put in place a POC is drastically reduced if you use Blockchain Workbench. The third one that I want to talk about is the Blockchain Development Kit. As I mentioned before, integration with other applications in your environment is a key requirement for most enterprises. So we have some sample scripts, we have some guidance available as part of our Blockchain Development Kit to handle the plug and play integration mechanisms. And in most cases, this integration is actually, it doesn't require a single line of code to be written because we can use our workflow process engine, which is Logic Apps. If you are familiar with the Microsoft BizTalk server, Logic Apps is the cloud equivalent of that. And it's similar to IFTTT, if this, then that, right? So you can actually define a trigger and then define a downstream action. And then we have a lot of actions defined and triggers defined. So you can actually use that to, let's say, kick off a downstream LOB application process when the state of your contract changes on the ledger. We are also working with Truffle to provide a seamless DevOps experience for the smart contracts on the ledger. And we have guidance on how to integrate heterogeneous user interfaces with your ledger. For instance, you can ask Amazon Echo, for instance, right, to record the current temperature where you live on a blockchain ledger. And the user interface in this case is an Amazon Echo skill. So this whole thing is possible today if you use our blockchain development kit. And there is also a comprehensive API layer for all these services on Azure. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover in today's session. We are constantly innovating and we are building new services in this space. And do pay attention to the Microsoft Build conference that is coming up in May, where we are going to talk about a lot of our upcoming products and services. And again, a huge thanks to Edward and Naomi from the Codit team for giving us the opportunity to talk to you all about our blockchain offerings. And you can reach out to me in case you have any questions. I'm there on LinkedIn, on Twitter. So thank you, everyone. And Edward, back to you.
Yes, thank you, Venu.
Okay, thanks, Venu. So to move forward, we're going to share with you the practical approach for one of the end solutions that we have developed. And this revolves around the end-to-end traceability for goods. So what we did was we developed our own track and trace solution working end-to-end, and it is IoT ready. So it interfaces with cellular IoT networks. You can use a mobile sensor that you have like in your hand. And it is also possible to call a simulator in the event that you don't have an IoT device. So it is all done through APIs. And since we are also ledger agnostic, we have the possibility of interacting with multiple blockchains as offered on the Microsoft Azure platform. So this is how we did it in terms of architecture from a high level. We have our Azure App Service in the middle, where it communicates with off-chain storage and on-chain storage. And we have the access to the APIs via Web UI, IoT hardware, so IoT Hub and the simulator itself. And we also use other components such as Logic Apps to facilitate the entire business process. The data layer itself is communicating via the blockchain through the parity hosted on Azure, and where we have the smart contracts, and the smart contracts have been implemented in such a way that you have one with a set of business rules for the condition of the item and one for the shipment itself. So it is very clear, very straightforward. Through the interaction with APIs and the services offered on Azure, we were able to construct this solution in an end-to-end fashion. So as final thoughts, we want to emphasize that blockchain as a technology is not standalone. It is just a piece of the puzzle, and these pieces need to be put together. Now, from an infrastructure point of view, this is perfect when it comes to building on top of Azure, because we have the accessibility for many tools and many possibilities. And it's basically part of what we do. It's where we come in. So we have 20 years experience in integration. We can help you redefine your business processes and build the architecture together. So if you have any use case in mind or need any form of support, we can really go beyond the average use cases that you just see when you are browsing the internet. It is really part of what we do, and it is all made easier through Microsoft technologies. So that was it from my end. I want to thank you for joining this webinar, and if you have any questions, please ask them now, and we will try to reply immediately.